So this afternoon, I'm very pleased to welcome Lara Gee from Aston Business School. Lara is an Associate Dean at Aston in the College of Business and Social Sciences. So she has responsibility for programme development and management responsibilities. She's an accountant by profession. I'm sure you're all pleased to hear, qualifying with PwC in Birmingham. Laura's research interests have recently been around universities and their association and relationships with the professional bodies, and also recently some work along the impact of COVID in higher education. So Lara's presentation is going to be an issue faced by many of our institutions, which is around postgraduate programs, postgraduate accounting programs in particular, and our ability or inability to attract UK students to those programs and where those programs might sit alongside other postgraduate programs and professional qualifications. So Laura, if you want to take over, I'll monitor the chat and collect questions from the audience, which we can have a look at after your presentation. Over to you.
All right, thank you everybody. Just making sure you can see the screen. That's my presentation, great. So thank you for that introduction. I'll just switch straight through to my introductory slide actually. And as I explained already, my current role is that Associate Dean post. So prior to university, well, prior to working at a university and prior to training as a chartered accountant, actually my background and my first degree was in economics and politics, which actually, now that I'm much further advanced in years and my career, is actually a really strong background in which to set the context of accounting. And I think that speaks to part of how I think about accounting education now that I've been in HE for some considerable time. So I've been at Aston now for 11 years. It's frightening how fast time goes. And during that time, obviously, I've basically transformed, really, I would say, from somebody who is a very competent professional trainer. My expertise was in tax when I was at BPP, but I can also teach audit. I can also teach economics. I had quite a wide range of subjects that I would teach to professional level. And I think it's that amalgamation of subjects that really allows me to put accounting into context, and why I find this discussion that we're about to have so interesting. So what I will do is I'll speak, and as I'm speaking, I think what it's probably best is if you, as we've said already, if you could put in the chat any questions, and then we can have a conversation about this afterwards. But obviously, as you're thinking these things through, please do put them in there. So in particular in this programme, because of my role, I am going to think about PG accounting, but there is the opportunity to think about UG here as well. But my perspective on the role of PG accounting education is particularly relevant because we really don't have many UK students studying accounting and accounting education. And I think one of the things we need to discuss is, do we even care? Is that even relevant? Does that matter? And actually, if it does matter, what is it that matters about that? And how do we direct ourselves to selling that to students, to selling that to business, and selling that actually also to society about why this is important? So again, just picking up on the themes earlier in the conversations that you've been having this morning, you've been talking about the accountant's place within a business being central, but I would argue on a more macro level, accountant's place within society is critical. And that's where I think that this higher education in the postgraduate market really hammers home, and that's where that higher level 7 critical thinking becomes fundamental to what we should be thinking about, or what I would argue we should be thinking about. But throughout this, we can't presume that we know what people want, and we can't presume therefore that they should want it. And actually we do need to think about the specific UK student problems and perspective as to why maybe they're not coming to university to get their master's programme. And we have to realise that they have a perspective that we need to hear, and we need to be able to answer, as well as our own our own agenda of what we think is important for them to be learning about. So it's that real discussion and balance around both sides that I think from there we will start to find a solution about what I do think genuinely is important, and that is students studying accounting and finance beyond undergraduate, beyond professional exemptions and examinations, and into this place in business and society. Okay, so as I've said, I am going to be focusing more on postgraduate study, but for the UG study, I think we've already been touching on this accreditation issue with undergraduate. However, I think undergraduate study in universities is largely very successful. We've got a lot of UK students. We've got a healthy number of international students sitting our UK programs. And we generally seem to be having quite a good mix of technical and academic within those programs. So I'll talk in some more detail about UG study in the moment. PG study seems to be largely successful as far as international students are concerned. So we still get quite a few students from international that want to come to the UK, that want to study a master's in the UK market. But COVID gave us a shock. We suddenly lost them all, and I think that's what then started to put our spotlight on PG study. So ever since I've been in UK HE, I've joined colleagues who are academics by training rather than professional accountants by training, and from the moment I joined academia, they were talking to me about accountability, not just accounting. And at first I thought, what gobbledygook are they spouting? Accounting is accounting. It's a hard science. It's a hard factual. And slowly over the years, I've really come to understand the importance of this research and the importance of this view about accounting. Accounting is powerful, and we are sending out graduates and postgraduates that have got literally the power, not only of organizations, but the power of society within their hands. And we have to really kind of step up and realize that's what we're providing to society and to business. And I really think that COVID has caused us to really think, actually, what we didn't need the UK students before. Probably we were moaning that they weren't here, but it wasn't bread and butter that we needed them here. And actually, I think by focusing on why we need the UK students, we can really start to uncover some reasons why or how we can change our programs and why it's so important that we do attract them. And actually looking at the HESA data is pretty stark as well. I mean, for our first degree, our undergraduate programs, we've got over 13,000 UK students, 7,000 international. For postgraduate talk, we've got over 13,000 international and only 3,800 UK students across the whole. So there is something here. There are not the students there in the first place. So it's not just that your program is different to what's going on in programs in other UK universities. The students are deciding they don't want postgraduate accounting education. And again, I think I'll go back to, why do we care? And I think by really understanding why we care about that, and it's well beyond the finances of our university that we care about that. It's well beyond our jobs that we care about that. And I think that's what I would want to really explore when we speak about this. So I think those numbers are pretty stark and give a view as to why this is happening. So let's think about undergraduate first of all in a bit more detail, and the reason why I am not so concerned with UG. The reason I'm not concerned so much is we do have 3 or 4 years with the students, and actually, I mean, our programs are 15, 30 credit modules, and if we wanted to get 9 exemptions, really it's only just 40% of our program that needs to be dedicated to accreditation. And as you were mentioning earlier, Paul, we don't even have to make all those modules compulsory. So in fact, we could have an accounting and finance degree that could tick the accreditation boxes, but equally provides another 60% of space where we could be teaching so much more than the pure technical accounting. And this comes back again to, you know, not just can you calculate depreciation, why have you chosen the depreciation rate you've chosen? And you can start to really fundamentally, and Darren and I had an interesting conversation yesterday, you can really create some graduates that can't just put together a balance sheet and a set of financial statements, but I love Darren's phrase, but actually professionals that can take apart that balance sheet and that income statement and interpret it for people around. And I did have one student arguing with me, why can't I just learn technical accounting? I prefer learning technical accounting. Why are you making me write this? Why are you making me present this stuff? And I just turned around to this student and I said, well, ultimately, if you had a doctor that knew exactly what was wrong with you, but he had no ability at telling you what was wrong with you or how you should treat it, what is the point of that doctor? And that is exactly the same with the accountants that we are producing. What is the point of them if they cannot interpret, they cannot fix, and they cannot use best practice in creating those solutions? So I do think it's really important that actually, not that we necessarily need to break away from accreditation, but that we really need to build our programs around the accreditation. The accreditation is one part of what they study. For me, I'd love to see loads more economics and politics in there, but that's because of my background, clearly, but also a lot more around general business, understanding the role of business, and actually getting our students working in cross-functional teams as they study with us, so that they understand the viewpoint of the marketing team, they understand the viewpoint of the HRM team, and they learn how to work together with those other professionals. The other good thing for me about UG is the professional exemptions that we can offer. For the sake of simplicity, I know they're not called this anymore, but the F1 to F9 match well with undergraduate. It's probably level 6, so it fits in nicely. But then for PG, we start to get a little bit lost. The exemptions aren't available for PG, and this is where we break down, don't we? And this is where I think the UK students stop wanting to come to us. So UG for me is solvable. I would say that it's not my job, that's somebody else's problem. For me, it's the PG piece really that is harder. So we have our PG students for just 1 year, and that is not long. That's 8 modules. Okay, that is 8 modules of time. Students typically want to get a job in accounting, and that's why they work with us, but we can't really offer any further professional accreditation because the accountancy bodies keep hold of them. They're their accreditation. They want to keep and it's fine, they're the gatekeepers of their qualification, and therefore they have the right to do that. So we don't have this to hide around and to attract people onto our programs at postgraduate. And at Aston, we've been looking at conversion programs, so getting somebody from a history degree to come in and do a conversion into accounting and finance. But again, it doesn't sit comfortably because you're offering exemptions in most of your modules at a level that is lower than a level 7. So even that kind of conversion plan idea isn't fitting comfortably with the education background that we know. And then COVID hit, and it really did pull into crisis, I think, particularly the PG market. I think we started to observe the vulnerability of our PG market. We can't take globalization as a given anymore. With it, there's pandemics, and now there's war. There's constant things that we realize are going to keep changing and are going to keep stopping our international students arriving with us. And that COVID impact actually has been positive as well, because it is turning the microscope onto areas that we may have carried on complaining about, but not actually actioning. And so really, I want to think about that. So moving on, I want us to consider the lessons that we've learned from COVID, and I'll speak a little bit about the paper that I've written and how that's influenced me actually, and the papers that were founded on there that helped with our reading when we were writing that. And then I want to talk about the really important areas of ethics, accountability and sustainability, and actually why we know PG accounting is so important. We've got to find a way as an industry of selling that to people beyond us. We know it's important. I don't think anybody else in the country does at the moment. Technology, and then thinking and considering specialisms, and these are all ways that we might be able to kind of free up our postgraduate study to something that is more successful. So with this paper, that we were writing about. So it's from unrequited love to sleeping with the enemy, COVID-19 and the future relationships between UK universities and professional accounting bodies. And I think when we were looking at this, we were, one of the key areas I think that we were still tied to, even at postgraduate, was exams. Okay, yes, there was some coursework, yes, there were some presentations, but we as accountants still loved exams. And really, when you're basing your assessment criteria on exams, students are basically awarded higher marks when more concepts and methods are recalled, taught applications are accurately recalled, accuracy evident throughout, and we really want these kind of keeping on with that professional theme of recall and calculative accuracy. Because of COVID, we had to do away with exams. You're all cognizant of exactly what happened. And actually, there was a really, really good paper that we read to help us write this. And it was by Sangster et al. And in fact, I think Linda Hickman and Joan Ballantyne wrote the UK experience for this paper. It's brilliant. It's insights into accounting education. And there's the feedback from 64 different countries from around the world of how COVID impacted their education. So I would really suggest reading this as a raw material to really kind of balance what you're thinking when you're thinking about assessing, particularly at level 7. So again, with this, what we realized was, well, hang on, we're not getting accreditation anyway, are we, at advanced level, or accreditation that's not worth having, because accreditation is going to be below the level 7. So our international students are coming to us anyway. They want a postgraduate qualification, but our UK students aren't coming to us. So let's forget accreditation at postgraduate level and not even pretend it's a thing. Okay, so let's free ourselves, and that's why I put freedom here. Because what we realise, particularly at level 7, is, oh, thank heavens, we can give lower marks for definitions. We can give higher marks for the application. That's the only way we can mark this. If we're going to be lazy enough to set a paper that still requires recall, then the students are going to do overly well. They're going to overachieve. And lower marks for that accuracy, and the higher marks then for the critical engagement and evaluation that is required of a professional in any context. And so that kind of eureka moment has meant, actually, even beyond COVID, most of our postgraduate modules now have no exams in at all. We've got rid of them. We don't need them at level 7, and we're not getting accredited anyway. So we're free of exams, and we are free of that burden. And it allows us to start entering and considering the themes that are much more relevant about why we know accountants should be getting this level 7 education. Okay, so you might recognise, those of you that teach accounting, why is ethics and accountability so important? And actually, by really recognising this, I think we really should be putting this forefront into our syllabuses at this, particularly at level 6, but particularly at this level 7. This is the point, to me, of a postgraduate education in accounting. So I've got a little tiny snippet from, does anyone recognise it? 2.06 recommendations encompass. Let me just put my little highlighter on it. A redefinition of audit and its purpose, the creation of a corporate auditing profession governed by principles, the introduction of suspicion into the qualities of auditing. It's the Bryden report. And last night, what has happened on the news, they're not even putting this audit reform into the Queen's speech. It's slipped down the agenda again. Tomorrow we'll deal with that. Tomorrow we'll think about the impact of audit on society, and it keeps slipping back, and it's because society is not recognising the importance of this ruling, the importance of the reform of accounting and audit. It's not just auditing, is it? It's tax. We've got the Panama Papers. We've got at the moment, we've got unequal distributions of wealth. Should there be a windfall tax on gas companies? These are the things that our students should be talking about, debating, and going into society and industry, having not necessarily the answers, but having the skills to discuss and to put the rules into context. But again, it's coming back to this accountability. Who knows beyond HE? I can promise you nobody, or very few, very well-read people might, but beyond that, most professional accountants won't know what you're talking about. We also have another huge problem in the UK with the level 7. So again, I realised this as I was kind of trying to build programmes and thinking about the level 7. Actually, we might even do our students a disservice by encouraging them to a UK accounting and finance, because if they've got a level 7 qualification, they won't be able to get, their company that they go to will not be able to get the levy funding to support them through their professional exams, because that's another level 7 accounting and finance qualification, and the funding isn't there for them if they do that. Now, again, for some of you in some institutions, the students are likely to be going to big accountancy firms. Maybe that doesn't matter, they're wealthy enough to pay again. But for students that aren't necessarily moving into that sector, or might be going into government, or might be going into maybe into, I don't know, government, health, charities, small SMEs, this is a big issue. They won't want to employ a graduate that they can't get their funding for, when they can get someone else who hasn't got an accountancy level 7 and pay for it through there. So big problem. So how do we make ourselves then attractive, knowing that we need to teach this stuff, knowing that we need students with these skill sets? And I think this is where we need to kind of pick up on the themes that we were talking about earlier. And actually, again, when I was speaking with Darren yesterday, he mentioned another really important one about project planning and that kind of scope. So the business analytics and the data, our degrees should be mixing with those skills, like being a professional witness on the stand. You know, these are things that take years to learn at work, or years to realize you need. Forensic accounting, sustainability and sustainable reporting, and making this really clear to employers and to students as to why this is going to get them a better job by having this background as well as the accounting knowledge. And business analytics, data and accounting has, when you do a Glassdoor analysis on this, you are going to get huge salaries if you've got that. So suddenly it's really worth the students' time coming to university, coming to get that level 7. And the other great thing about these is BPP and Kaplan can't easily offer all of this. We can offer all of this because we are generally working in large multi department organizations where we've got this skill set around the university that can feed in to these types of delivery and these types of skills for our students. And again, when I was teaching auditing, we had a fantastic speaker coming in, and he's an auditor within a finance, specifically a boutique finance auditing company. And he said in his audit teams now there's 2 accountants and there's 4 data analysts. So the accountants might be leading the audit, they might understand what they're auditing, but they're operating teams of specialists. And it's not like when I was training, when it was all accountants. There's 1 or 2 accountants now, and then teams specialists. So we need students that understand that they are not operating within a silo, they are operating even in practice with lots of different skill sets and lots of different types. So to me, this is where I see we have our most kind of scope for attracting the UK students. At Aston, at the moment, what we do is we actually, these employability skills that we've been talking about earlier, we offer something called the Aston Global Advantage, which I have just taken and actually made a 15 credit compulsory module in every single programme at postgraduate level. And we split this into 3 terms, so it's a long and thin module. The first term is a business challenge, and all business school, and actually I'm going to be getting the social sciences and the politics students involved in this as well. Term 1 is a business challenge, and you're in multinational, you're in multi-program teams, you're not probably with other accountants, you're not with people from other backgrounds, and we set a business challenge. So this year it was on sustainability for the 2022 Commonwealth Games, and they presented, the students, the best ones presented to the Commonwealth Teams Committee, and they have problems working in teams. So we have started to put in managers for the team, so academic staff who act as managers. So if there's problems with the teamwork, they can start to really feel what it's like at work when there is somebody that isn't pulling their weight, when there is somebody who doesn't understand what you're saying because they've got a completely different background and a completely different skill set to you. Then in term 2, what we're doing is we're having program specific training, literally training. We're going to get online accreditation for all of these. For accounting, we're looking at Excel, Power BI, and probably an accounting software. But for CIPD, for example, for the HRM degree. They've got other skills and program specific items that they will be looking at and looking at training them. And then finally in term 3, they have to choose a work experience stream. Real placements obviously is the preferred one, but we do also offer business startup support. So we've got a few successful graduates now, postgraduate students that have set up multinational businesses now through this business startup program. We've got also virtual internships for those students that can't or won't be able to travel. We offer study abroad, and we also then offer business simulations for those students that don't or can't choose any of those options. And so we force them into the work environment. We force them to adapt their learning and their skills into there. So we'll see how much more willing they are when it makes a whole 15 credits in its own right. I'm sure they're going to be more motivated. Okay, and that business challenge in the TP1, we do also teach, we physically teach presentation skills, so that they are learning presentation skills. They are learning the importance of written as well as verbal communication as they're doing that. So that's what we're doing actually at Aston to make all of our master's programs more attractive, and I'm hoping that it helps also with the accounting one in particular. So the way forward, I think this is where I would really appreciate your input, appreciate your views on what I've been saying about your experiences, but not taking away from the fact that actually we now are the holders of the education, that we've got many prolific writers. I'm thinking Prem Seeker, I'm thinking Richard Murphy, all of these big names that are saying accounting and accountants aren't working. We're the ones now that need to be making this young generation understand the context of their studies. There's nowhere else to go now. We have to do this. And I think what we have to do is find a way of selling it to our students so that they want to come and learn that, rather than simply having their professional qualification. Okay, so thank you. That's what I wanted to say.